Hello, English 200 students. In this video, we are going to cover the literature review, which is the major assignment due at the end of Module 4. Now, if you've been paying attention, I hope you're starting to see how everything we do in this class builds upon the work that you previously did, or you did in the last module. And the same is true here. Your literature review will build upon the work you did in that annotated bibliography. Now, again, I have to reiterate that if you found a new article or a new source that you would like to use, that is absolutely okay at this point. You would just include that new one in your literature review. However, and this is important, your literature review will become one of the major sections of your research paper. Therefore, let's take this hypothetical that I've actually had students go through in the past. Let's say that in the future, maybe next week or the week after that, you find a new source and you absolutely want to use it in your research paper. Do you have to go back and resubmit the references list from Module 2? No. Do you have to go back and create annotations and resubmit for Module 3? No. Do you have to resubmit your literature review itself? No. However, since the literature review will be a part of your research paper, from here on out, if you do find a new source you want to use, it must be included in your literature review. You must have a reference for it in your references list. If you have questions about this, please reach out to your instructor, but it's important to understand that distinction. Now, let's get into the assignment itself. Your literature review will be about, or at least, 5 pages long. That does include 1 page for the title page and 1 page for the references list. You do have the option of submitting your introduction here, just if you wanted some feedback or to start kind of putting those pieces together for your paper, but you do not have to. If you need more information, please visit the research proposal assignment sheet video and the final research paper assignment sheet video. The literature review itself, therefore, must be at least 3 pages. The format is the same. This must be an APA formatted paper. So we do have all of those resources and other forms of assistance available to help you with this. So what is a literature review? Kind of as the name implies, it's a review of the literature. But I've had students get confused by this term in the past. We're not talking about literature in the sense of, great books like Moby Dick or Shakespeare. Literature just reviews to the readings that you are using for your research paper. So scholarly articles, literature. Your general but credible sources, not literature. So I hope that distinction makes sense. You are only reviewing the scholarly sources that you are using in your paper. First, you want to use the literature review matrix. And we do have links for that available, and I have an example of it right here. You don't necessarily have to fill out every single part of the literature review matrix. Some things might not apply, like maybe your article isn't, or you can't identify which theoretical frameworks have influenced this research. That's okay. Maybe you're struggling with understanding what their research question was, or maybe it didn't come from a database. Like, all of that is okay. This is for your assistance, but I will say that the more you fill out in your literature review matrix, the easier this assignment will be. So definitely use this as you are going through reading your scholarly articles and preparing to discuss them in your literature review. All right, so you have your literature review matrix, you have your references list, and you have your annotations, which include both your annotated bibliography and just the notes you yourself took on your reading, just as we're practicing in the read track. So take all of those things together, review them, and make sure that you have a pretty good understanding of what these research articles are about. Now is the time for you to create that first draft of your literature review. The purpose of it is to provide a comprehensive overview of the existing research on the topic. So in other words, right here, as we say down below, this is one of your first places to build credibility with your reader. So one of those strategies to appeal to ethos. You are showing your reader and your audience that you know what you're talking about. You have done your research. You know what other researchers are talking about. You know the general dialogue or discourse that is happening surrounding your topic. So developing that credibility is incredibly important here. The major goal of the literature review is to identify themes or trends in your research topic and to organize them thematically. So in other words, it's not like the annotated bibliography where you are just summarizing every single article you found. Instead, you're saying, I have read articles A, B, and C, and they all relate to this theme that is important or significant to my topic. So it's very, very thematic. But it still does give your reader a chance to understand the topic a little better and what research is being done. One of the big concepts when you are creating this thematic organization for your literature review is synthesis. And again, this is something that we are practicing in both the write and the read track because that is how important it is. In effect, synthesis is when you combine, when you take elements from one source, you compare, contrast, and combine it with elements from another source to take away, to synthesize the broader themes of what's happening. An analogy I always use with my students is it's kind of like a zipper. Right? When a zipper is undone, you have two distinct things. Synthesis is that act of zipping it up, of bringing it together, of making these two things stronger as a whole than they were individually. By synthesizing, not only do you build that credibility, but you help your readers understand the bigger idea of what's going on. Because as you've probably heard before, research is like a dialogue. It's like a conversation that many, many people all around the world and even throughout time are having. Connecting the dots is your job. When you do synthesize within one of your paragraphs, you must cite those sources. So this would be that in-text APA citation that is now required again. We are not in annotated bibliography territory. You must have in-text citations. So cite two or more of your sources and explain how this topic or these ideas support your understanding of an aspect or a facet of your topic. The goal of a literature review, or your goal, should be to hit about 3 pages. You want them to be thematically organized, so it is okay here to use subheadings as allowed by APA formatting. Maybe you identified, say, 3 major themes that researchers are looking at about this topic. You would then have subheading 1, subheading 2, subheading 3, that are the different themes you are exploring and synthesizing in your paragraphs where you explain that research. Again, the ultimate goal is that by the time that your reader finishes your literature review, they should have a good understanding of what this topic is, why it's an issue, what researchers are doing or saying, and how it all relates together, especially as it relates to your own project. As we will continue, we are now in firm academic territory, so your audience is academic and scholarly, but they might not be an expert within your topic itself. So again, this doesn't mean write as if they were kindergartners. Write to them as if they had a college degree or were in college, but you still need to explain things. You can't assume that they know every single thing of what you were talking about. Another excellent tip to kind of help you out here is think about the readings you have done. How do they write? What is their tone? What is their diction or word choice? What is their style and voice? Modeling that, kind of imitating them, is a great way to get going at this stage. Which means you do need to use formal standard English, avoiding slangs, contractions, but the first person pronoun is acceptable. we've talked about it a few times, but I do want to reiterate, we understand that you are a student who is just beginning their degree path. You do not have someone, with a bachelor's degree, you do not have a master's or maybe even a PhD like the researchers you are reading. Meaning we know that your scholarly sources are written by these people with highly advanced degrees who have been studying this for a long, long, long time. You have not. So we don't expect you to be as diligent, as credentialed as they are. But at the same time, we want you to try to begin to emulate it. Begin to try to walk in their shoes. Because you are speaking to that academic discourse community, even though we know you're not trying to be published. We call this a learn by doing approach. So just as, take a sport. You could read everything you want about how to play tennis, but you're not going to become better at it until you actually get out onto the arena and start playing, or onto the court. So it's the same thing here. We know that we could provide you with readings, that you've been practicing some of these skills, but you need to actually now begin to learn by doing this kind of work. Reflect upon those scholarly articles that you've read. Reflect upon those things we mentioned earlier about tone and voice and their style. You won't be assessed or graded as if you were a published scholar, but we still expect you to try. Do your best to begin. For AI, no content of the literature review should be AI generated. And it's for the same reasons as the annotated bibliography last time. AI cannot supplant your own critical thinking, reading, and writing skills. So it is essential for you to learn how to do this because you will be expected to do it in the future. Now, with that being said, AI is a great way to help identify themes. So for example, let's say that you are struggling. You've read all of these articles, you've read about the topic, and you are struggling to find what themes emerge. It is okay to engage in a dialogue with and to ask AI to help you with that. If you do use this method, or if you do use AI in that way, you still need to write your own work. What would that look like? Let's say that AI says, hey, here are 3 major themes in the research. Great. I would review them, make sure that AI isn't hallucinating, go back, review the articles that you have read. It would be okay for you to use those themes as subheadings or to help you organize. But then everything else, the minute that you've done that, now it's time to engage in your own writing. We have a lot of resources or assistance here for you. So a student paper template, kind of helping you see what it would look like overall. Specific assistance with literature reviews. The Office of Student Writing and Learning has helped you with that there. We have a more in-depth included in your readings for this module about how to engage in synthesis, what does it look like, and help with a tutor. So I strongly encourage you to use these resources if you have any questions. Here we have our step-by-step checklist. Again, just for your own to help you stay organized and know what to do. And then we have that rubric. So just thoroughly and carefully review the rubric. Make sure that you know all of the things that we are asking you to do, and you will be prepared. If you have any questions on this one, I know how difficult the literature review can be. Please do not hesitate to reach out to your instructor.